Yeah, casi que. 1, 2, 3. Love, acts of love, bringing folks together from different places, coming together while in different spaces. 29 countries and 30 faces, trying to stay cool in each other's graces. Traveling the world in a ginormous broom, flying through the atmosphere, going zoom. Warriors of the heart, del corazón, searching for some art. That's mi amor, moments coming up, so let's go. It's our place to start, so that's never wrong. But we're stuck in a cage. Una caja, try to channel rage, mucha rabia, with the world in turmoil, going loco. We find a new stage para todos breathe. News getting me crazy, try not to be lazy. Everything looks so hazy, so let's come together to rise above, casting out a line, seeking acts of love. Acts of what? That line should be cut. Acts of what? Let's rise above. For what? For what? ¿Para qué? ¿Para qué? ¿Para qué seguir viviendo? ¿Para qué seguir luchando? Tanta gente que se muere todos los días enterrados. Tíos, tías, padres, hermanos. Duele tanto. La pregunta que me hago es, ¿por qué esto está pasando? Why is this happening?
Hello. How are you? Thank you for being here. My name is David Deblinger. Today is a culminating event that was born out of a process where the number one ingredient was and is trust. The idea was to bring together an ensemble of international current and former HB Studio students to feel comfortable enough to share moments that matter, inspired loosely by the words acts of love. So we worked to build that trust, and I've been doing this kind of process for a long time, and what I found is when people feel comfortable to share stuff that matters, no matter how old or young or whatever color or country or sexual orientation, when people share stuff that matters, their voice and body changes and everybody goes. And at the beginning, we always talk about, nobody has to share anything, but if anybody takes the invitation and does, we ask everybody else in the room 2 things. One is to keep it in the room. The other is to listen. And I believe everybody in the whole world needs to be listened to. I'm so proud of this group and to start today's culminating event. I was also really excited and thought of a friend of mine to also offer some opening remarks. There were 2 reasons that I thought to invite my friend Tracy to be here. To offer some opening remarks for this Acts of Love culminating event. The first was that, this was supposed to be an international students, primarily people who weren't born in this country. And then we extended it to have people, whose, ancestors are from other countries. And then I realized, well, that's just about everybody I know, people whose ancestors, and the only people that are actually from this soil are native people. And that's one reason I asked Tracy to offer some opening remarks. And the second reason has to do with these words, these precious words that we're all saying a great deal right now and should always be saying, which is Black Lives Matter, and also a moment that happened between Tracy and I. It was the day after this current president was elected. I was in a church. It was a conference about improving the life of young Black males in New York City and things to help with that. And Tracy was there, and it was the day after this president was elected. And I looked at Tracy at one point and I said, how do you feel? And she said, David, every time I wake up in my home, as soon as I leave my home, I am extremely anxious that something's gonna happen to me because of the color of my skin. Every single day of my life, that's how I feel. How do I feel today? I feel like it's Thursday. I don't think I'll ever forget. Tracy, I'm so grateful to have her here today to offer a few words, and she's gonna say a little bit more about herself. So ladies and gentlemen, here's my friend, Tracy. Come on, come on. Here's Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, David. Greetings to everyone. As David said, I am Tracy. My full name is Tracy Heider-Suffern. I'm the executive director of the National Jazz Museum in Harlem, and I am a member of the Ramapo Lenape Nation. Thank you so much for allowing me to be with you. I'm deeply grateful to David Deblinger and to Acts of Love for the invitation. Thank you, thank you. In the Lenape language, Anushik. What many of us call North and Central America, to First Nations people is Turtle Island. What we know as Manhattan, Lenape people know as Turtle Island. In another First Peoples interpretation, the Earth, Turtle Island, is a great island that floats in space and is a place of eternal peace. We acknowledge Turtle Island and the blessings it offers us, and we ask permission to hold this event. We thank Father Sky and Mother Earth for abundance. We thank the Creator for breath, for life, and we ask for blessings. We have entered a time of great change. This is made evident by all we see unfolding around us. We acknowledge that we are the survivors of our strongest ancestors, and we ask our ancestors for guidance. Our work is hard and we do not shrink from it. For those called to do the work of change, I offer to each of you, to all of us, this is holy work. I decided to spend this part of my life in the arts because it allows me to speak the messages I hold in my heart and to tell creation stories coded in my DNA. A life in the arts allows me to make space for and give voice to the reasons we are all here. Love, witness, communion, forgiveness, grace. About 3 weeks ago, amid the nearly paralyzing pain I was feeling about the murder of George Floyd, coupled with the overwhelming gratitude I was feeling for all, to each who takes to the streets to demand change, I called my friend who I trust and who is one of the most intelligent, humane, and bravest people I know. He is my trusted litmus test. As I cried to him from a social distance, he reminded me, each of us is called to different roles in this fight, in this time, in our lives. He reminded me of what I have chosen to do with my life in the arts. And he said this to me: everything we do to be human, everything we do to be humane leaves spiritual residue. How do you love, he asked me. Where is grace? Where is unmerited favor? Where is unearned forgiveness? Here, I also quote Wynton Marsalis, who, in an interview just a couple of months ago, spoke of his father, the great Ellis Marsalis, who at the time had just passed away. It is now, he said, when we find out if we are who we said we were. To each of you, to each of us, I pray, be acts of love. Leave spiritual residue in your wake. Blessings to you, to all of you. Anushik. Aho.
That was amazing, Tracy. You are wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, I was a professional athlete. I used to do high jump. My biggest fans was my sister Eleni and her husband Sakis. My sister is 10 years older than me, and her husband 12. They were married for 12 years already. And her husband, he was more like a big brother to me because he was always there for me and he always supported me as an athlete. In July of 2009, I have to compete in the last game of the year. It's the Greek National Grand Prix. And in this game, I nailed it. I jumped my ass off. I got the first place and I almost break my personal record. I jumped 7'1". But after the game, for some reason, I start crying and I didn't know why. And it wasn't tears of joy. I felt sad. I didn't know why I felt sad. So I remember the coach came on me and she told me, why are you crying? Like, you did great. Like, you almost break your personal record. You got the gold medal. Why are you crying? I was like, I don't know why I'm crying. Anyway, a few minutes later, I come down and it was the ceremony and they give me a beautiful gold medal. And then I went home. In my house, I have a special corner that I put all my medals. And for some weird reason, this medal, I couldn't put it there. And I didn't know why. And I remember taking the medal and just leave it on the table. A few days later, we are in my best friend's house, Manolis, and we were fixing his car. We were fixing his car because we're supposed to go vacations together in Corfu. Corfu is a Greek island where I'm from, and I have a summer house there. I remember this day, we had a great time. We were joking all the time. He was asking me, you know, what you should think we should take with us? I'm like, this is very simple. 2 things, underwear and condoms. That's all we need. My mother, she was already there and she's supposed to stay for a week. And when she come back, we're supposed to go. So I'm like, I say to my friend, you know what? Let me call my mother to see if she can leave earlier so we can go earlier. So I'm calling my mom and I'm like, hey mom, what's up? She's like, not much. I just came here, you know. I'm like, you know what? Do you want to just stay for a couple of days so we can go earlier maybe? She was like, you know what? Calm down, big boy. You're going to come. I'm staying for a week. I'm like, okay, mom, whatever. Have fun. Bye. I said to my friend, you know what? We're not going earlier. Okay. After 2 minutes, my mother is calling me again. And I remember looking at the phone, seeing the number, and I start screaming, this is not for good. This is not for good. And I pick up the phone and I heard my mother yelling, Πού είσαι, πού είσαι, πήγαινε βρες την αδελφή σου τώρα. This means, where are you? Where are you? Go find your sister now. I'm like, Mom, what happened? And she tells me, πέθανε ο Sakis. That means, Sakis died, my brother-in-law. I'm like, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. She's like, yes, he had a heart attack and he died. Go find your sister now. I remember turning off my phone, jumping on my motorbike, and go to find my sister. A few days later was the funeral. Before I go to the funeral, I went to my house and I pick up the gold medal from the table. So in the funeral, in Greece, we have this tradition a few moments before they put the casket on the grave, we open it for one last time so we can say goodbye, one last goodbye. And I remember standing in front of the casket, looking at him for one last time, take out the medal from my pocket and put it in his hand like this. When I did that, my sister knew how important for me was a gold medal. Actually, it was the most important thing in the world. And she told me, no, you work so hard for it. Don't put your sweat on the grave. And I told her, this is not a grave. This is my brother, and he deserves a gold medal. Thank you.
A veces sueño. Cada uno de los sueños que tengo cada mañana, a veces los recuerdo.
Jak miałam 20 lat, to byłam na wakacjach na Majorce. To były moje pierwsze wakacje wtedy z chłopakiem.
Ci siamo rivisti dopo 13 anni e io gli ho dato un appuntamento al Pincio, che è un posto sopra Piazza di Spagna.
Πριν από 6 χρόνια αποφάσισα να αφήσω τη χώρα μου και να πάω να ζω στη Νέα Υόρκη. Το θέμα είναι ότι έχω μια ανήσια.
C'était 2005 et j'allais venir à New York pendant 3 mois. J'allais y passer tout l'été. Et j'avais trop hâte.
En ik zou het graag hebben over de liefde die mijn grootmoeder eigenlijk mij leren geven heeft, zonder er iets voor terug te willen.
So when I was in college, living in New York, away from home for the first time, and mom called me.
Zeit ist das Allerwichtigste, die Liebe. Es kommt immer
Amor.
Miłość.
Amore.
Αγάπη.
Amour.
Liefde.
Love.
Liebe.
When I was a kid, my grandma was my best friend. She spent all her time with me, teaching me things and answering my questions or telling me stories from her life. And I remember one day she was trying to tell me something, but I did not get it, and maybe because I was 4 years old, or maybe because the topic was too complicated for my grandma to explain, but it was about her life during the World War II. And eventually she said, okay, let's just sit and watch a film about that war. And we did, and I never returned to that film for some reason, but this year I suddenly saw a piece of it somewhere on the internet and I decided to rewatch it. And after I did, of course I had to call my grandma. And she's 85 now, and sometimes she forgets things, and I try to be careful when I choose my words when I talk to her. But of course I had to ask her that question. I asked, Grandma, do you remember when you showed me that film for the first time? And she laughed and she said, of course I remember. You were never so confused in your life before. And she asked, but do you remember the song that I taught you from that film? And of course I remembered. And so 20 years later, and an ocean apart, over the phone my grandma suddenly started singing that song for me again. And the song goes something like this. Ніч, яка місячна, зоряна ясная, видно, хоч голки збирай. Вийди, кохана, я працею зморена, хоч на хвилиночку в гай. Бабушка, я очень сильно по тебе скучаю, и я очень сильно тебя люблю.
Thank you, Anna. And hello, everyone. So, when I was a freshman in college, living in New York, away from home for the first time, my mom called me, and right away, I could tell something was off. And so she proceeded to tell me what had happened to her the night before. So she told me she was sleeping in her bedroom and she heard the blinds moving and thought it was my dad closing the window before he goes to bed. But then realized, she kind of woke up a bit more. Actually, I think that's a noise coming from outside the window. And so they live in a townhouse condo where their bedroom window looks out to the roofs of another unit. And so I actually know this from being a kid growing up there, that there are ladders outside the units where you can climb up to get to that roof where my mom's bedroom is. And usually those ladders are gated and locked, so it's actually very hard to climb up. But if you know where they are, you could get up to that roof. And so she hears the noise still and realizes, oh, that's not my dad, that's someone outside on the roof. And then this man proceeds to say, "This is my home." And she freaks out, screams, shouts for my dad, and unfortunately their bedroom door was closed, and my dad, like he usually does, fell asleep on the couch in the living room watching ESPN or something. And so he couldn't hear her screaming. But then my mom somehow got up, got out of the bed, opened the bedroom door, and screamed for my dad. And then apparently my dad just bolted up the stairs, got into the bedroom, turned the lights on, and just looked straight at the guy at the window. And I know he probably looked scary as hell because I've also gotten those looks as a kid, and it can be very scary. And once the lights turn on and everything, the guy at the window just ran away. He freaked out and ran away. And so my dad told my mom, okay, you call the cops. I'm going outside to find this man. And so my dad goes outside and my mom calls 911. And she talks to the operator, explains everything that happened, and the operator asks her, okay, was the man who was trying to get in, was he Caucasian, Black, or Hispanic? And she says that she doesn't really know for sure because it was dark and she was so frazzled. And so the operator asks her, is there anyone else with you at your home? And she says, my husband, but he actually just went outside to go see if he can find the guy. And the operator asks her, can you describe your husband? Is he Caucasian, Black, or Hispanic? And my mom says Black. And so then the operator asks, can you describe what he's wearing? And my mom says green pajamas. And the operator just says, ma'am, can you get your husband inside the house? And so my mom was like, okay, let me call him right away. Of course, my dad went out. He didn't even have his cell phone on him. But since my mom had also told the cops that this guy was on the roofs and he was jumping over different units, the cops sent a police helicopter. So when my dad was outside, he heard this helicopter and was like, you know what? This probably doesn't look so great. So he got himself inside. Thankfully, nothing terrible happened. But I just remember hearing all of this as a freshman in college, moving away across the country. My parents are still in LA, and just feeling terrible. Like, my mom was still totally shaken up when she was on the phone with me that morning. But then when I heard what my dad had done and the lengths he went, like going outside trying to find this guy who tried to break into their house, I remember thinking, well, you know what? He'd do anything for my mom. They're going to be okay.
that was beautiful right there. That was beautiful. You guys had the dance moves too. Oh, had a little moves. I ain't gonna embarrass myself. The biggest moment in my life was going back to Liberia with my cousin, and I consider Liberia home. Like, I was born here in the States, but Liberia is home to me. Now, to some of you white people and some black people, I'm just a black guy, and I'm black. Specifically, I'm Liberian. My name is Nya, spelled N-Y-A, and that originates from the Mono tribe of Liberia, and it means third son. And my mom was born there, my dad was born there, and majority of my family was born there. So, Liberia is home for me. And my cousin, he was born there, but he fled because of the war that happened there about 30 years ago. So he hasn't been back since the war. And this is going to be his first time going back there in a long time. And I was excited that I was going to be there with him, for experiencing this moment that he hasn't experienced in a long time. But I was nervous. And I was nervous because usually when I go with my mom. My mom's the one that handle all the logistics. She's the one to call who's going to pick us up, where we're going to stay, who we're going to visit. And usually I'm just along for the ride. But now it's going to be me and my cousin, and he hasn't been back for a while. I've been there recently, so I'm kind of like the lead in this. And when we got to the airport, it was a little awkward because me and my cousin, we're not the closest. And, it's the first time just me and him was going to be in one place together for a long period of time. But I kept my composure. And luckily, we sat separately on the flight, so I didn't have to deal with any awkwardness. And I was happy about that. And so, we take the plane there. We landed in Liberia. When we got there, somebody picked us up. We drove to where we were staying. And once we got there, we got settled. Once we got settled, the first thing I said, I was like, yo, we have to go back to the village. The village I'm talking about is the village that his mom was born in, my mom was born in, and majority of where our family stays. So I'm like, we have to go back. And he's like, yeah. And, we set the date. It was like, all right, we're going. So over the next over the next week or so, we just kind of went around different parts of the country. He has a nonprofit there, so we was helping out with his nonprofit there. And the day before the trip to the village, he says he can't go. And I got mad. I was thrown up. I'm like, yo, I wanted us to go together, me and you, two sons, going back to the village to go visit. You haven't been there for a while. I want to experience his experience. But he said he wasn't able to go because he was busy with the nonprofit stuff. And, I tried to convince him, like, hey, let's go on a different day. Maybe, I can wait. Maybe we could do something else. We can visit for a little bit. And he kept on saying, no, he's busy. And then to eventually, he was just like, yo, you're a grown man. Go by yourself. You've been to the village before. You don't need me. You know the area better than me at this point. Just go by yourself. And he was right, but I didn't want to go alone. I really didn't, And I had to contact my family members who knows how to get to the village. Who's going to pick us up, plan the time of day we're going to go. And we had it set. And the next day, the driver picked me up. Then the driver picked up the family members, and we off. And I'm still nervous. I'm getting more nervous because I'm like, I'm basically the producer of this trip. Like, no one planned to go. I'm the one that called them. I was like, hey, we're all going on this day. So I was just nervous. And, we driving down the road. We driving. And then one of my family members said, make a left. And we make a left into a dirt road. No signs, no nothing. No, it was just a bent branch that was off of a tree. And, when you're in Africa, you don't ask any questions. You just go along for the ride. You don't ask and say, why is the branch bent like this? How you know how to get there? You don't want to bring no attention to yourself. I said, okay, this is the way. Bent branch me left. So we're driving. It's bumpy. A couple of rocks is scraping our car, and we had to get out and push it and stuff. But I'm determined. I'm like, I'm going back. Our producers, we have to go back, right? We have to go back to the village. So we finally get to the village. And, when you pull into the village, it opens up. You see all the houses, the trees and everything. And everyone from the village is coming back from farming. So as soon as we parked, all my family members jumped out the car and they went to greet everybody. And I sat in the car for about 10, 15 seconds because, usually when I come with my mom and to see my mom. Then my mom's like, okay, this is my son. And it's like, okay, and they know. And on top of it, I had a different hairstyle. I didn't have this hair last time I went. So I'm like, they definitely probably don't remember me. And So I get out the car, I'm kind of nervously, going up to, the family members. And then when my aunt saw me, she came and she ran up to me. She said, Yana, you? Oh, look at you. You got your hair grown. You're looking tall. You're looking nice. And it got me so happy that she remembered me. And then I went to go say hi to everybody. I went to say hi to the uncles, to the aunties, to the old mothers. And then I walked to my grandmother and grandfather's grave. And they're both buried there side by side. And, they was married in this village. They raised kids in this village, majority of families. So it's like our village. And I go there and I'm just looking at the two. And I'm looking and just taking a moment. And then my uncle, he comes up to me, he see what I'm doing. He said, Jan, look at you. You have not forgotten about us. And, I said, no, I cannot forget. You guys are family. I can never forget. And then I look back at my grandmother and grandfather's grave. And I said to myself, I have not forgotten. Your grandson has returned, and he has not forgotten.
E che mi chiedevo se la più grande fatica è riuscire a non fare niente. Lasciare tutto com'è, fare quello che ti viene e non andare dietro alla gente.
Om alles te laten zoals het was. Alles op je te laten afkomen. Verander niets voor niemand. Ik verloor mezelf in het zoeken van iets magisch. Het perfecte liedje tussen een hoop stenen. Stenen min of meer waardevol. Een paar belangrijke herinneringen die me altijd bijblijven.
Πιο υπέροχο τραγούδι σε έναν σωρό από πέτρες. Πέτρες λιγότερο ή περισσότερο πολύτιμες. Και κάποιες σημαντικές αναμνήσεις που τις ακούς
Mi
πάντα.
lasciavo trascinare in giro dalla tristezza, quella che ti frega, ti prende le gambe, ti punta i piedi nella direzione opposta, così lontana dal presente, così lontana dal presente.
Me dejé llevar por la tristeza, la que te engaña y toma tus piernas, la que coloca tus pies en dirección opuesta, tan lejos del presente. Pero nosotros somos los que permanecemos de pie, los que tambaleamos sobre tacones altos. Quítate los lentes y con el acelerador asesinar nuestra vida se precipitan en el camino.
Маяки освещают наши мечты, и мы как дикие кошки на страже любви.
Soon the days will prolong. Where will I dream?
Μπορεί να μην κάνει τίποτα. Αφήσει τα πάντα όπως είναι. Κάνε ό,τι σου έρχεται. Και μην τρέχεις πίσω από αυτό. Ποιος ξέρει ποια μαγεία. Πιο υπέροχο τραγούδι σε ένα σωρό από πέτρες. Πέτρες λιγότερο ή περισσότερο
Perché mi chiedevo se la più grande fatica è riuscire a non fare niente. Lasciare tutto com'è, fare quello che ti viene e non andare dietro la gente.
Wkrótce dni stają się dłuższe i będziemy mieć sny jak reflektory.
We are the ones who remain standing and tottered on dancing high heels, sunglasses, take them off, the accelerator all the way and go. The days will be longer, we will have dreams as the headlights, we will have watchful and careful and wild in our eyes.
Las luces nocturnas se apagaron y las ventanas cerraron a aquellos que no se alejaran de las puertas.
Мы те, кто остаемся и шатаемся на кругу. Не снимая маску, мы жмем на жизнь, так хорошо. Этот путь, как известная дорога, по которой летим. Освещает наши мечты.
The days will be longer, we will have dreams as the headlights, we will have watchful and careful.
En een paar belangrijke herinneringen die je altijd bijblijven.
Que vienen a probar, que vienen a provar. Che mi lasciavo trascinare in giro dalla tristezza, quella che ti frega, ti prende le gambe, ti punta i piedi nella direzione opposta, così lontana dal presente, così lontana dal presente.
Es que me preguntaba si el mayor esfuerzo, el no poder hacer nada, dejar todo como está, hacer lo que se te ocurra. Pero como estás cansado y sin fuerzas, somos los locos que vienen a probar. Somos los locos que vienen a probar. Somos los locos que vienen a probar.
That video really hits me because all artists are dreamers, and especially in these times, there's no point not to embrace your dreams because life's simple. You make choices and you don't look back. That's actually a quote from the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, which is by all means a terrible movie, but it's the third movie in this franchise that holds a lot of meaning to my family. You see, my dad grew up loving these really cheesy 80s action movies, and when there was a series that combined both car culture and family, it held a special place in his heart, and it kind of spread to us, me and my siblings. And my brother and I, we were on completely different sides of the social spectrum. He was popular, he was very sociable, and I was kind of an outcast, very introverted, but we always got together and bonded over these movies. And you know, we would talk about what kind of cars we wanted growing up, whether we'd like customize them for street racing, for drift racing, for just drag racing. And those moments were so pure to me. And we'd always talk about like going to where the movies were filmed and just looking at the areas, and maybe even going to Tokyo one day, seeing what everything is like. And we had planned this like trip across the country to just learn about cars, go to all these car shows. And 2011 really seemed like the year that was going to happen. He was getting a car that he was going to customize specifically for shows, and I was getting my license, and it seemed like that dream would happen finally. But in March of 2011, when he was finally going to go look at a car that he wanted to buy and test drive it, he went to my grandparents' house that night because my dad was working the next morning, and my grandfather was going to like take him and make sure everything worked and whatnot. And the morning when he was supposed to go, I get a call from my mom at 7 a.m. and she says that Boo-Boo, my brother, died. You see, my family has this underlying heart condition, and apparently it got to him. He was only 18, and at the time I was 16, and I was devastated. I lost my best friend in the world, and most important, I also thought that I was gonna be next, you know? And from that point on, I just didn't take my life seriously. I acted out, and for the next 2 years, I lived reckless until I turned 18, and I just showed no sign of slowing down. And then I realized I was miserable, and my brother wouldn't want me to live like that. So that summer, I realized I needed to make a change. I got my GED, I took my SATs, and the next year, I became the first person in my family to go to college because I wanted to study acting and theater and filmmaking, and I wanted to make movies like The Fast and the Furious so that people could be brought together over them, like it brought together me and my family. And after going to college for 2 years, I realized that so much of it is so cliquey, and it's like built around who you kiss up to and who your friends are rather than talent. And I became the first person in my family to drop out of college. And for that next year, I felt aimless. And then one night over in November, I woke up and at 3 a.m. and The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift was on TV. And it was this scene where the character of Han tells Lucas that no one knows what they're doing in life, and that life's simple. You make choices and you don't look back. And in that moment, it was a thing I needed to hear because I felt so aimless. So that night I looked up acting schools online, and I was like, really trying to figure out which one was the best to go to. And then HB Studio stuck out to me because all of these actors that my dad and me looked up to growing up went there. And so the next morning I went to the city, went in there, and despite never being in this building before, I felt like I was home. And I went to the office, I signed up for classes, and that next year I went for the entire year, and I felt like I had purpose for once, you know, and I loved it there. But I had really bad health conditions, and both physical and mental, and, you know, heart condition. Felt like I didn't want to push myself too much because I didn't want these to be my last days. So I took time off, and I focused on, for the next years, I focused on playwriting, acting in theater, and directing. And that was all fine and dandy, but then I felt like I hit a wall and didn't really know what I was doing anymore. And in December of 2018, despite all of this, I wake up at 3 a.m. again, and guess what movie is on TV? The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift, at the exact same scene. But while I was watching it, I felt like my brother's presence was there with me, and there was just something about that moment where the words of Han talking to Lucas, you make life simple, you make choices, and you don't look back. It was almost as if it was my brother saying that to me. And that next year, I went back to HB, and I signed back up, and I've been going there consecutively for the past year and a half now. And I met all of these amazing people. I met some of my best friends. I worked with these incredible teachers, and not only have I become someone who I'm happy to be and someone who's less angry at things, but for the first year in my life, I haven't looked back.
Da vida embrulha tudo. A vida é assim, esquenta e esfria, aperta e daí afrouxa, sossega e depois desinquieta. O que ela quer da gente é coragem. O que Deus quer é ver a gente aprendendo a ser capaz de ficar alegre a mais no meio da alegria e ainda mais alegre ainda no meio da tristeza. Só assim, de repente, na horinha que se quer, de propósito, por coragem. Será? Era o que eu às vezes achava, ao clarear do dia.
In widows, no one could see the pain you were feeling. Help I sought but a longing to touch someone that wasn't you.
I asked to the stars for the best that we could do. I'm in inside your heart. You just knew it too.
The scarf belonged to the ocean. That's what you had to do.
The scarf belonged to the ocean. We will be standing right there with you. The beach and the sea were the portion that your heart needed to heal. The scarf lays deep in the ocean, so now you both can be free.
Hello, hi. Thank you, Fernando, and thank you, Maho. That was a beautiful song and a very thoughtful video. My name's Flo, and I had a French grandma. I had a really close relationship with her because I lived half of the year in France and half of the year in the US for about like 13 or 14 years. So we became very close, and I looked up to her so much. And I guess you could say she was a small, petite French woman, but also had a strong personality and was sometimes kind of vulgar. And she thought she was like super modern, which I thought was funny. She would always tell me that she had a washer dryer before any of her friends did. And she wore pants before it was à la mode, even though she wore skirts and high heels like every single day. And she also was kind of unpredictable with her temper. So sometimes if she was angry and driving and you were in the car with her, you just had to get ready because she would, she was a tiny woman and would drive like a bat out of hell and just like behind the steering wheel. Sometimes when we would fight, some plates have gone flying, and she would sometimes, if I got into a fight with her, and or even if I was just complaining about the weather, sometimes she would be like, yeah, well, if you don't like the weather here in France, you just go back to the US. I was like, oh, okay. Or my whole family would come and visit her in her home. So sometimes if someone would move something of hers, she'd be like, oh, you guys are just invading my home. I can't wait till you guys leave. And she didn't mean that. We loved her, and that's just who she was. So I remember one day when I was walking with her, probably going to the market, and I don't know how we started talking about death, and she told me, if ever I start getting sick, or if ever I'm old and I'm not doing well, she's like, I don't want to be in a retirement home. I don't want to be in a bed waiting. She's like, I'm going to jump in the river. There's a river close by. And she's like, me? I'm just going to jump in the river. She's like, don't you guys try to help me. And I was like 8 at the time. And I was like, okay, grandma. And fast forward a few years later, she started getting sick, and she was coughing and she had trouble eating. So my mom went over to France, and then I followed with my sister like a week or 2 later. I remember when I got there, my mom said she was really having trouble eating, and but my grandma wanted to make an effort to show that she could eat, because we hadn't seen her in a while and she wanted to show us that she could eat. So I remember feeding my grandma, which was weird because she usually fed us, and she was eating just the tiniest spoonfuls of food, and some she would swallow, most of them she couldn't. and she would try to hide it a little bit. If she couldn't, I would look away. She was a little embarrassed. And it just got worse. So she went to the hospital, and the doctor said she really needs to be intubated, and she really needs to be fed that way. Otherwise, she's not going to get any food. And so my mom spoke to her. My grandma was really against it, and she was like, "Oh, no, I don't want any machines hooked up to me." And we were like, "Oh, this is gonna be a process." But she needs to be intubated. And so I remember at one point I spoke to her, and I said, "Mamie, you really need to be intubated, and it's not gonna hurt." And she's like, "Huh?" She's like, I'm not afraid of the pain. That's not it. She's like, "I just don't want a machine." And I told her, "Mamie, you need to be intubated. Otherwise, really isn't many other options." And I don't think she told us, but a day or two later, she had it in, and she started getting better. She regained some of her energy. Her personality came back, and she was telling us like, "Oh, that nurse, she knows not to talk to me because we already had a fight." And so we knew she was doing a little bit better. And everything was fine. I remember, I think I went away for a little bit because she seemed to be doing okay. But a week later, I remember my mom calling me, and she was FaceTiming me, and she said that my grandma was not doing well, and we needed to say bye to her today. And I remember she was FaceTiming me, and my grandma was in the camera, but she was sleeping, and I had to say goodbye. And I said, "You know, Grandma, like, Mamie, I love you. Thank you." And I didn't really know what to say. How do you say goodbye? And so the phone call ended, and she passed away not that long after. But I wish I would have said, "Thank you for trying, Mamie," because she didn't want to. I remember that story. She told me she didn't want to, and she did for us. And this is Mamie. This is her. She's wearing a skirt and high heels in the middle of the mountains. And Mamie, merci d'avoir essayé.
I'm Dominican. I eat a lot of stuff with rice. I like rice and beans. My dad is Puerto Rican. My grandparents live in Philippines. I came to America when I was just 5 years old. I like rock.
I'm very nosy.
Very.
I hate the unknown.
I love chocolate.
When I get money, that gets me overjoyed.
I like to sing and dance and do things.
I like cheering and cheerleading and doing cartwheels and flexibility stuff.
My parents are from Mexico, and I haven't been there, but I see pictures and it's very beautiful.
I like The Walking Dead because every time when I watch it at night, I get really scared, and I like getting scared at night.
My favorite food is pizza, rice and beans, and lasagna.
I like hanging with friends and watching scary movies on Saturday night. I love to dance.
I love to dance.
I hate prejudiced people.
When I grow up, I want to be a legend for doing something.
I want to be a horse rider when I grow up.
We go swimming like every weekend.
Like the water was really, really cold. Remember, outside it was cold, but then in the inside it was like super warm. Yeah. But one time the kid threw up in there.
Yeah, that was nasty.
What it feels like to die? Like, does it feel like when you close your eyes? Like that's one thing that's always on my mind.
What is it like to be married?
I guess it feels like having a boyfriend forever.
Yeah, or like what it really means to love somebody.
I remember being a kid and having so many questions about the world, and now I'm an adult and I regret knowing the answers. So this project is called Acts of Love, right? And the greatest act of love I've seen over the past few months was all of these incredible and talented artists getting together in these absolutely horrid times that we live in and just making something positive and something so beautiful. And over that time, I was so inspired by them that I produced, wrote, and with the help of my friend Wakana, who is also part of the project, performed this song. And I'd want to invite everybody involved in the project to come back, turn on your cameras, because I want to present this song to all of you. And I want to say thank you so much for helping me get through this past few months.
Just blame everything on me, so your mind can be at peace. Tell me everything you need, so your heart can finally breathe.
An act of love could be a single moment, like showing someone your soul with no fear to expose it, and holding a broken heart with the means to console it, and being a source of warmth in the midst of the coldness. The world's showing its age while we are facing a plague, while our future seems vague. We all need to be brave. Let's put our doubt in the grave and shine a light in this cave for our sanity's sake. Let's create trust, put our hands together. If we embrace love, then we can live better. As the rain stops and we are doing better, let's open our hearts and enjoy the weather. It's in these broken instances we set aside our differences, and kindness is a gift to give, no matter what the distance is. It's better than to tragedy with hopeful into diligence, but now's the time to realize how peaceful coexistence is.
Just blame everything on me, so your mind can be at peace. Tell me everything you need, so your heart can finally breathe.
In the Fast and the Furious franchise, Dominic Toretto says, "I don't have friends, I got family." And over the past few months, I feel like that's what we've been, a family. And I want to thank you all so much. Panos, take it away.
Kevin, I'm a big fan, man. You're so good, bro. And Wakana, I love your voice. So, in my first story, I told you how my brother-in-law passed away. What I didn't tell you, though, is that he and my sister, they have two beautiful kids together. They have my niece Fotini and my nephew Nico. 6 years ago, I decided to leave Greece and pursue my dream in New York. The hardest part for me is to tell to my niece Fotini that she was 15 years old and my nephew Nico that he was 10 years old, that I have to leave them. Because for them, and especially for Nico, I was the man in his life. We used to do so many things together. I remember I had to teach him how to ride a motorbike, and his dad, he had to teach me when I was in his age how to ride a motorbike. So for me, that was the hardest part. I remember we were in my grandmother's house. I sit them down and I told them, look guys, I have to leave. I have to go to New York for a better future. What do you think about it? First, Fotini told me, look, I don't want you to go, but I know it's gonna be better for you because this is what you wanna do. So go for it and don't worry about us. We're gonna be fine. Then I asked Nico, I'm like, Nico, what do you think? So when I asked him, he put his head down like this, and he was like, no, I don't want you to go. I'm like, come on, man, if I do that, you see, it's gonna be better for us. And he was like, no, I don't want you to go. I'm like, fuck, what should I say to him? What should I do now? I'm like, look, in New York, they have the best toys, the best video games. Every month, I'm gonna send you the best gifts. And when I say that, he put his head up, he looked into my eyes, and he said, gifts? I don't want gifts. You are the best gift for me. Thank you.
So much. Thank you so much, Panos. And thank you, everybody. Can everybody come back out? Everybody turn on your camera and come back. I want to thank everybody for being here, and all of you who tuned in today. Thank you for being here. We often end with like a positive word, you know, to the group. I'm gonna ask people to just say one positive word that offered to the group. And actually, I'll just share one little moment. You know, it reminds me of like my son is 5. The other day we played Monopoly, my wife and I, with my son, and the whole time we were playing, my son is like leaping and dancing, and he's like jumping around, and I realized it was because we were there. That we were just with him. And I feel like we've been together during this challenging time. And I want to thank you all. And I'll put a positive word out to the group: vulnerability. Ugo.
Teamwork.
Satoshi.
Light.
Kevin.
Family.
Flo.
Trust.
Charly.
Healing.
Panos.
Unite.
Marimar.
Believe.
Helen.
Beautiful.
Nya.
This was some fun shit.
Henardo.
Empathy.
Wakana.
Friendship.
Emilie.
Energy.
Lana.
Ensemble.
Odette.
True love.
Anna.
Togetherness.
Maier.
To respect.
Isra.
Not alone.
Maria.
Connection.
Fernando.
Shine on.
Kenneth.
United talent.
Thank you all so much for being here. How about these 3 words? We'll just say 3 words to end. 1, 2, 3. Black Lives Matter.
Matter.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming.